Hey, some of you may have seen our 8-episode travel series to London and Paris, and I learned a lot from our first overseas trip together. So in this video, I'll share with you our top 10 travel tips that we learned. Tip number 1. Research the museum ahead of time. What I mean by this is to familiarize yourself with the contents of the museum before going. If there are any artworks or artifacts that you really want to see, plan your routes accordingly. Go to there first before wandering around. Why, you may ask? Well, museums are big, and even if you spend an entire day, you probably can't see everything. And if you don't like doing research, most places offer audio guides. And if you don't know the local language, that is one resource available. But I do suggest you guys bring your own wired headphones instead of using the ones that they provide. Tip number 2. Guided tours are nice. Some of you might be hesitant in joining a guided tour because it limits your freedom to explore at your own pace. However, in London, we joined a free guided tour in the Shoreditch area, known for its vibrant street art scene. These tours are offered by local guides who don't request payment up front, so it is accessible to all travelers of all budget. And unlike museums, you don't have to read any plaques, do any prior research. You simply listen to the expert share their knowledge. It gives you the opportunity to also ask questions at the same time. Another cool thing is you won't get lost and you won't feel unsafe because you are traveling in a big group. There is one catch though. It is technically not free because it is courteous to donate at the end of the tour, as this is the livelihood of the tour guide. We had a lot of fun, so I highly suggest you guys join one. We went to one that was offered on strawberry tours, and I'm sure there are many more you can find online. Tip number 3. McDonald's is your best friend. Well, technically it doesn't have to be a McDonald's, but the chances of you finding one while traveling is very high. If you are traveling the city on foot, you are bound to need to use the washroom at some point. In such situations, you will soon realize that the first thing you enter in Google Maps is McDonald's. To prevent such emergencies, I highly suggest you to use the washroom whenever you have the chance. This means that if you're at a restaurant, it is a good opportunity to hydrate yourself and use the washroom before departing. During our travels, we did see some public washrooms that you could use. But most public washrooms that we've seen, you have to pay to enter. Although it is just a small fee, it still feels bad that you need to pay to use the washroom. Tip number 4. Choose tap water over sparkling water. This was our first lesson that we learned when we went to our first restaurant in London. The waitress came and asked us, do we want water? And we said yes. When she came back, she brought us water in this fancy bottle. I looked around to the tables around us and we saw that no one had the water that we got. And at that moment, I knew we messed up. And we were right. When the bill came, it was around £5 to £10 for that sparkling water. So if you guys are content with tap water, which you should, especially in London and Paris, you should specify that you want tap water, or else you'll be seeing an extra charge on your bill. Tip number 5. Bring bag clips. In our travels, we went to various shops such as M&S to sample food so we know which food is good for us to bring back as souvenirs. So naturally, with so many bags opened, it would have been a lot easier to manage if we brought those bag clips. Also, snacking is a very fun pastime while traveling, especially going to destinations that are hours away. Those are the moments where you can try out all the snacks that you brought, see which one is good, remember them, and then buy more before leaving that particular location. Tip number 6. Keep track of the goods that you buy. Here's a practical tip. Whenever you're returning back to your home country, you'll be asked to fill out a custom form asking you for the monetary value of the goods that you are bringing back. Most often than not, when we travel, we tend to buy things and then add up everything at the very end. At the very end, as in on your flight back home. To avoid last-minute hassles, I suggest you to keep track of the goods that you buy as you go. For example, on a Google Sheet. This way, when you're about to go back home, you will have all the details readily available. You can use this as a strategic way to maneuver different goods that you're bringing back between the travelers that you are traveling with. Tip number 7, always make reservations. Whether it's dining or sightseeing, do your research ahead of time to see if reservation is required. For instance, most popular attractions require reservations. You can't just go in and expect entry or a table. For restaurants specifically, once you made a reservation, they will ask you 1 or 2 weeks before your arrival time to see if you're actually coming. If you do not respond in time, they will just cancel your reservation. This is exactly what happened to us when we booked a reservation with the Mad Hatter's Sanderson afternoon tea experience. I actually made 2 things wrong. First, I booked for the hotel and not specifically for the Mad Hatter afternoon tea experience. Second, I also did not check my email and respond in time to let them know that I am actually coming for this reservation. So once I got there, they said we have no table. Luckily, this is something that I learned on the second day of our trip, and all our subsequent reservations were all fine. In terms of attraction, the Warner Brothers studio for Harry Potter, the Louvre, and Versailles, I highly suggest you make reservations for those, as those tickets do sell out really quickly. Additionally, you could buy train tickets ahead of time. Any kind of early advance ticket usually comes with a discount. So if you know which day you're going to travel, I highly suggest that you buy those tickets ahead of time. Tip number 8, keep your daily schedule light. Making reservation is beneficial, but it can limit your freedom while traveling. Additionally, moving from one reservation to the next can be exhausting. What I learned is that 1 or 2 reservations a day is more than enough. Any additional time you can use just wandering at the location that you're at, or just taking it easy so you don't have to feel rushed. If you're traveling with someone that enjoys shopping, you never know what will catch their eye. And once they do, you know you will stay at that place for a very long time. From a famous anime that I watch, always expect the unexpected. You never know what you will find while traveling, while wandering around, sightseeing. So having some extra time can really help you out. Tip number 9, credit card is king. You hardly need any cash in the UK or in Paris. Maybe in some small local business where you need some cash, but for the most part, you can just tap and go. Even on the tube, you don't even need an Oyster card. You can just use your credit card instead. I highly suggest you guys to invest in a credit card that does not charge any extra foreign exchange transaction, and then you'll be set. For example, I was at a food court in London. They told me they don't even take cash, and I had to use my credit card at that point. Plus, I think carrying a lot of cash just doesn't feel safe. I'm just scared that someone will come and mug me and take all my money. Luckily, that didn't happen. Tip number 10, buy a weekly transit pass. Transit is so convenient in London and Paris, sometimes it might be to your advantage to buy a weekly pass. For example, in Paris, from CDG Airport to downtown Paris costs you 11 euros for a train ticket. If you need a return trip back to CDG Airport, that will be 22 euros. A weekly pass on the Navigo Transit Pass is 30 euros. So you are just 8 euros short of the weekly pass. The only tricky thing about this is that a weekly pass does not mean at the start of activation. For example, a weekly pass could start from Monday to Sunday. So if you buy it on Saturday, you really only have 2 days of transit on that weekly pass, which probably wouldn't be a good deal. In addition, we realized that weekly passes help us be more open in trying different forms of transportation. For example, in Paris, there was this funicular that goes up a very long hill towards this chapel or church place. If we did not have the weekly pass, we probably wouldn't have paid to try that mode of transportation. It's also very hard to kind of time to know like how many tickets or how many dollars that you want to put onto your transit pass. Weekly passes solves that problem. You don't really have to think about it. You just go, use the card, and you're all good. Well, that wraps up our top 10 travel tips that I learned from my trip to London and Paris. Comment below the favorite tip that you learned or any other tip that was not mentioned that you feel will be beneficial for people traveling to London and Paris.